All right, let's get into this, a really fascinating concept called BatchBayes. So the idea here is to take the raw power and, the incredible speed of high-frequency trading and weld it onto prediction markets. And the result? Hopefully, a powerful new engine for figuring out what's really going on.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's the big dream of any prediction market, right? The whole idea is to pull together all of our collective knowledge, every little rumor, every bit of data, and boil it all down into one single tradable price on something that hasn't happened yet.
But here's the catch. For all of that incredible promise, most prediction markets out there today are, well, they're kind of broken. They have some really deep problems that stop them from ever living up to their potential as this ultimate source of truth. So let's start by digging into what exactly is broken. Because once you really get a handle on the problems, the solution they're proposing starts to look incredibly elegant. For the people actually trying to run these exchanges, it pretty much boils down to three massive headaches. First, there just aren't enough traders or enough money in the system, what we call thin liquidity. Second, you get prices on related events that make zero logical sense. And third, there's the constant looming threat of legal and regulatory trouble. And this quote, wow, it just perfectly captures that first problem. If you don't have enough people actively buying and selling, the market has no energy. It can't produce a useful price, and it just, well, it fizzles out and dies in the dark. So how in the world do you fix all that? This is where BatchBayes comes into the picture. It brings a whole set of really clever solutions, borrowed straight from the world of high-frequency trading, but with a fantastic twist.
Okay, so the biggest change here is in how the market actually works, and it's super interesting. Instead of a constant 24/7 scramble where the fastest computer wins by a nanosecond, this hugely expensive arms race, BatchBayes uses something called batch auctions. A great way to think about it is like a ferry that leaves the dock every 100 milliseconds. Everyone who wants to trade gets on at the same time at the exact same fair price, so the competition isn't about who's fastest anymore, it's about who's offering the best price.
And this quote just nails the benefit. You get all the good stuff from modern finance, the efficiency, the liquidity, but you get rid of the most toxic part, that tunnel-digging arms race where firms blow millions of dollars just to be a tiny fraction of a second faster than the next guy. And to solve that whole dying in darkness problem, the design uses this really smart two-layer system. So first, you've got a normal order book where the pros compete. But, and this is the key, underneath that, there's a reserve maker. It's an automated system that jumps in and guarantees there's always someone to trade with, even when things get quiet. It basically stops markets from turning into ghost towns. Okay, so this is the part where BatchBayes goes from just being a better, faster exchange to something, well, something genuinely new and really powerful. This is the secret sauce. At the absolute heart of this whole thing is something they call the coherence engine. You can think of it as a super strict math checker for the entire market. It doesn't see individual bets, it sees a whole web of related probabilities, and its only job is to make sure that web makes perfect logical sense. It's what stops the market from saying crazy things like there's a 70% chance of rain and a 70% chance of sun. I mean, it's just simple logic, right? If A, B, and C are the only possible things that can happen, their probabilities have to add up to 100%. Not 90%, not 110%, exactly 100. The coherence engine enforces these basic rules of math across thousands of markets all at the same time. And the job this engine does creates some huge advantages. For one, it just flat out rejects nonsense trades, which builds a ton of trust. It also generates something called implied liquidity, which basically means if you trade on one thing, the system can automatically figure out a fair price for something else related to it. It's like it's creating liquidity out of pure logic, which makes the whole thing way more efficient. The other part of this secret sauce is this really radical change in how people get paid. It's called scored liquidity. See, in most markets, you pay traders just for being active, for creating a lot of volume, even if it's just meaningless noise. The new way? BatchBayes pays them for being right. So the crucial takeaway here is that this completely flips the incentive structure. It's designed to attract a totally different kind of person, not just the high-speed traders who are trying to scalp a tiny fraction of a cent, but actual quantitative forecasters, people who have genuinely good models about how the world works. And that makes the whole market smarter and way more credible. Okay, so having an elegant machine is great and all, but how does this actually turn into a powerful, sustainable business? How do you build a real company here and not just another financial casino? Well, first, let's just look at the size of the prize. The prediction market industry has seen absolutely explosive growth. Some reports are showing that the amount of money traded every month has soared past $13 billion. So yeah, the appetite for this is definitely there. The business model itself is really smart and diversified. Sure, you've got your standard transaction fees, taking a tiny slice from trades. But the real gold mine, the really high-value product, is selling the data. All of those clean, coherent probability forecasts the platform creates, that becomes a product in itself. Kind of like a Bloomberg terminal, but for probability. Now, we have to talk about the regulators. In a space that is, let's be honest, getting a ton of legal heat, the plan isn't to run and hide. The core strategy is to build a fortress of compliance right from day one. And the approach is super methodical. You start with what you might call the boring but bankable markets, things with a clear economic purpose, like inflation data or the path of a hurricane. You prove the model, you build trust, and you deliberately stay away from the legal minefields like politics and sports until the rules of the road are much clearer. I mean, this quote just says everything you need to know, doesn't it? The whole system, from the ground up, is designed for total transparency and accountability. You build it like this so that when the regulators inevitably come knocking, you're more than ready. And that actually turns regulation from a huge risk into a massive competitive advantage. So when you put all these pieces together, the fair auctions, the logic engine, the smart incentives, the regulation-first strategy, you start to realize that the ambition here is way, way bigger than just building a better place to bet. It all comes back to this core principle. By keeping the amazing liquidity of modern finance, but engineering out all the wasteful, extractive tunnel digging, you're left with something new. It's not just another market. It's an engine that is purpose-built for one thing: pure, clean information delivery. And that leaves us with this one last big question to chew on. If a machine this powerful can learn to accurately price the odds of tomorrow's inflation rate or the chance a storm hits a certain city, what other uncertainties, what other pieces of our future could a machine like this eventually learn to price for us?